So tomorrow connection cover it. Yeah, Android iOS screen tomorrow. Yes. We found it. When you switch to another side. Poor connection. So Android can that's what connector. He connected with that. Should be here. Screen mirror, man. Right, you can't screen it as you do with your phone. That's what important. I'm happy now. That's for I did it with my phone yesterday. I said try. This is not happening. You should get that link. You do it with your phone, you get it. So you try to connect it. That's what I'm saying. Starting from it.
Wi-Fi up because
With the Wi-Fi too.
up using Apple YouTube not community. You have one.
You never need to use it.
HDMI to tackle it.
Connect it
from here.
Yeah,
Just be easy. I'm used to it.
फोन भी करेगा What does it sound in? You know that? You get on.
बहुत टाइम से pretty sure how long is that?
Pretty sure. Don't worry. You know what time second July is? Second July is 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
Yeah? So hurry up. Huh? inshallah. Finally. Got there.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. As mentioned last week, inshallah, we'll be talking more regarding now establishing the foundations in Medina Munawwara, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has now, after spending a few nights in Quba, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to or entered into Medina Munawwara. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered into Medina Munawwara, it was a day of Friday, and that was the very first Jum'ah Salat which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a khutbah, and very eloquent khutbah, in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a very important message. Now this is the very first khutbah in Islam, the very first Jum'ah Salat in Islam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during this khutbah, what is he saying? The main message is very simply taqwallah. Obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and prepare for the hereafter. This was the main message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد غوى. Very famous ways we hear time and time again. And whosoever obeys Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then indeed he is rightly guided. Whoso disobeys them, indeed he has been misguided. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam further then states that taqwa is the greatest thing. Usikum bi taqwallah, and khayru ma usikum al muslim al muslima. This is the best thing which an individual, a believer, can advise another believer, is that fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because taqwa and abstaining from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the key to success in this world and the hereafter. Nevertheless, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered into Medina Munawwara. And as I mentioned last week, that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed the Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum that leave the camel. Leave the camel. The camel will continue to go wherever it has been commanded to go. So the camel continued until it sat down on a piece of land. It was an open piece of land. And thereafter, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got it up again and made it walk a bit more. So it sat down outside the house of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. Thereafter it stood up and it came back to that very same place which it sat before. And this piece of land was the place where the foundation of Masjid al-Nabawi was to take place. So inshallah, as we see here, that this is the current layout of Masjid al-Nabawi. So if we see that the Masjid al-Nabawi, so the green dome is there, and we see that we've got the courtyard outside, and the red boundary is the actual masjid. So the masjid is quite large at this moment in time, and currently it is a very large masjid and can accommodate thousands of musallis. And it is approximately, I think, 1 point something million square feet, the current size of the Masjid al-Nabawi. And in comparison, here we can see the actual Masjid al-Nabawi in comparison to Baqi, which it is quite small when we look at it like that. But this is the current Masjid al-Nabawi. Now, the original masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was this, as we see here, was the original layout of the masjid. So this camel sat down on this piece of land. Now this piece of land was owned by two orphan children by the name of Sahl and Suhail. when this camel sat down, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this is an instruction that this will be the foundation of the masjid. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked that whose land is this? What is this piece of land? So he was informed that it belongs to two orphan children. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam summoned them, called them, and spoke to them and their guardian that look, we wish to designate this land for the masjid, because this is the very first thing now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is doing in Medina Munawwara. The very first thing, he just got to Medina Munawwara. But the masjid needs to be established. This is the headquarters. This is where the hub of the community is. So he asked them that if you allow, then we can purchase this, and accordingly then we can build our masjid here. So he spoke to both of them, and their uncle, who was their guardian at that time, was also present. So they said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, it would be a pleasure for us to donate this land to you. Please take it free of charge. We make it waqf for Allah and it is yours for taking. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said no. Because obviously they were orphans and it was not appropriate for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to take it from them free of charge. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, I will purchase it from you. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made and fixed a price with them, and then the price which was fixed was 10 dinars, 10 gold coins, equivalent of something like, say, 1,500 pounds today. And he says that, and he instructed Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he purchased this land for the Muslims. This land was, as I said, an area where the dates would be put out to dry, and the trees also, the whatever leaves etc. would be put out to dry. So first the whole land needed to be cleared. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, they removed all the whatever there was on the land, the trees etc. There were also certain graves there as well of the mushrikun from before. So these bodies were exhumed, and thereafter the graves were, and the land was leveled, and the bodies were then relocated, and the masjid was built. Now as we see that the masjid size was a decent size. It wasn't a small masjid. In our here Jamaat Khana, we've got, I think there's 35 musallas going across. Okay, 35. If you add both of the side rooms, I think there's 10 in each side room, approximately. So that will be 55. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you count the passage as well. And because you've got two small stuffs there and you add them on to the end, so you make it 10. So you've got 55 musallas going down across and 10 stuffs, so that's 550 musallas in our masjid here, including the side rooms. The masjid of Medina Munawwara, the very first masjid established by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's a difference of opinion of the actual size, but they're all around this much, plus minus. So it's approximately 1,400 musallas. Musallas, not musallis, because you'll always get 3 musallis on 2 musallas. So accordingly, if there's 1,400 musallas, then that masjid was enough to accommodate around 2,100 people. A big masjid. And this was the very first masjid, and this was the very first layout. And now 3 doors were kept. One, if you see, the masjid is facing north. Okay, so what we need to understand now is that the current Masjid Nabawi is facing south because the Qibla changes later on, as we'll discuss, inshallah. But here the Masjid is facing north because at that time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to Makkah, Medina Munawwara, then the Qibla was Baytul Maqdis, and Baytul Maqdis is up in the north. So where the mihrab is now currently, where the Imam stands, that is where the mihrab now, before it used to be the additional mihrab at the front, but now what they've done is the Imam stands at the actual mihrab of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So where the mihrab stands now, that is where this door at the bottom is. Okay? And then you've got the two doors on the sides, one in the east and one in the west. This is where currently Bab Jibreel is and Bab al-Rahmah is. So Bab Jibreel, if you're looking towards Qibla now, is on your left hand side. And Bab al-Rahmah is on your right hand side. Okay? So obviously this has now been flipped the opposite way. But originally this was the layout of Masjid al-Nabawi. And it was a very simple masjid. This is an artist's impression of the actual masjid during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you see the Qibla facing Masjid al-Aqsa, and this little bit here on the side coming out, that would be the houses of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which I'll discuss inshallah later. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself participated in the construction of this masjid. The Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu anhum themselves participated in the construction of the masjid. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum would work, and whilst working they would say, Allahumma la khayra illa khayrul akhirah, fansir al-ansara wal muhajirah. That, oh Allah, there is no goodness except the goodness of the akhirah and the hereafter. Oh Allah, assist the muhajirin and assist the ansar. And they would at times say, لَإِن قَأَدْنَا وَالنَّبِيُّ يَعْمَلْ لَذَاكَ مِنَّا الْعَمَلُ الْمُضَلَّلِ. That if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is working and we just sit around and do nothing, then this does not appropriate for us, and this is definitely wrong on our behalf. So the Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu anhum would work, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself would also work. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew the strengths of the Sahaba Kiram. So he knew that there was one particular Sahabi from Yamama. His name was Talaq ibn Ali. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would himself lift up, he instructed the Sahaba that make bricks from clay and leave them out in the heat until they kind of like, foam a little bit, and then we'll make the masjid from that. And he instructed Talaq ibn Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to make the cement and the mortar to join the bricks together. So he said, should I not assist in making the bricks and bringing them? So he says, no, you are skilled in this particular field and this is your expertise, and it's important that we have a solid structure, so you just worry about this. And he would then make the cement and the mortar to join all the bricks together. So in this way, the Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would make the masjid. Now this is an actual model which can be found at a museum in Medina Munawwara, and they've made it upon the actual understanding from the ahadith and the books of Seerah. So if you see, it was a very, very simple masjid. Very simple masjid. If you look at so this is the Qibla at the front where you see the covered area, the roofed area. That was the actual Qibla area. Okay? And as we see, the roof was covered and made out of the leaves of the palm trees. And there were pillars supporting that roof from the trunks of the palm trees. And there would be the columns to keep that roof up. Obviously, it was palm tree leaves, so when it would rain, at times, the roof would leak. So later on, it was plastered over and it was made watertight later on. The floor was just a simple normal floor, the natural floor. There was nothing on the floor. And it wasn't until 3rd Hijri 3 years later, that finally they put pebbles on the floor of Masjid al-Nabawi. Now this was the masjid from where Islam spread. As Hafiz Sahib rahmatullahi alayhi would say, that masjid kacchi thi, lekin a'mal pakke the. We always say this. Ab masjid pakki ho gayi, lekin a'mal kacche ho gaye. He says that the masjid was simple, but the a'mal were very, very strong. But nowadays, the masjid have become very, very strong, but the a'mal have weakened and become simple, unfortunately. So, this was the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in its original form. Very simple masjid. Then the hukam came after around 16, 17 months, which we'll go into some detail inshallah later on when we come to 16, 17 months inshallah, that the Qibla is to change. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam now started to face towards Makkah Mukarramah. So now instead of facing north, he was facing south. So the door of entering the masjid was in the south. So obviously that door was now covered up and the mihrab was built there. And then another opening was made on the opposite side. And because the houses and the residence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was here at the back of the masjid, that has now moved. So if you turn this upside down now, if you turn that 180 degrees, then that is now at the top corner. That has now gone to the top left-hand corner, and that is where we see that the Rawda is, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is buried, in the house of Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So originally the houses were on this side. So originally, if the Qibla hadn't changed, then it would have been in this manner, at the back, where currently you've got where you enter from on this side. But now it's on the top left-hand side. So because the Qibla completely changed. But the two doors obviously still remained. So the masjid was built, and it took a number of months to make the masjid. Approximately around 5 months, 4 or 5 months it took to build the masjid. And the masjid was built. After that, until then, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't even worry about building his own house. He remained in the house of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He didn't even worry about his own house. Once the masjid was built, that is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, okay, now it's time for me to build my house. And he built his houses. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to Makkah Mukarramah, his family members were still some in, when he came to Medina Munawwara, some of his family members were still in Makkah Mukarramah. So he sent certain Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, his own adopted son Sayyidina Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, along with Sayyidina Abu Rafi' radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, to go to Makkah Mukarramah and bring his family members. So Sayyidina Kulthum radiyallahu ta'ala anha and Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha, they came to Medina Munawwara. Along with his wife Sayyidina Sauda radiyallahu ta'ala anha also came to Medina Munawwara. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu also sent his son and with them, so that he could also bring Sayyida Asma and Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So they also came to Makkah, Medina Munawwara. When they came to Medina Munawwara, then where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was staying in the house of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, they also stayed with the house, in the house of Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari radiyallahu ta'ala, means Sayyidina Sauda. It was only Sauda radiyallahu ta'ala at that time. Once the masjid was made, then 2 houses were made immediately, because the nikah had already taken place with Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, and now the rukhsati was to be done. So 2 houses were made, the house of Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha and the house of Sauda radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So if you see there in the top corner, the top left is, if you can, here is Aisha, and there is Sauda radiyallahu ta'ala anha. These were the first 2 houses. These houses here were owned by a Sahabi called Haritha ibn Nu'man radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Now Haritha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu owned these houses, And what he would do is whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted a house, he would say, Ya Rasulullah, you take this house. So the house of Aisha, a house was given for Aisha and a house was given for Sauda. And then as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married his other wives, then he would say, Ya Rasulullah, you need another house? Take it. Ya Rasulullah, you need another house? Take it. Ya Rasulullah, you need another house? Take it. And he would give these houses to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu was also given a house. And when he got married to Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha, then they got another house there as well. So if you see here, this is the house of Ali and the Fatima radiyallahu anha. These are all the other wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hafsa is next to Aisha. Then you have Zainab bint Khuzaymah. Then you have Zainab bint Jahash and Maymuna radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Here at the bottom, where the original Qibla was, there Sayyidina Juwayriyah, Sayyidina Ramla, who was the daughter of Abu Sufyan. So she's also known as Habiba radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So Ramla was the actual name. So that was her house. And next to that we've got Sayyida Safiya radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And right on the opposite side of the masjid was the house of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Right on the opposite side. That is where currently we have the Bab Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. If you want to enter the old Turkish part of the masjid, then you have to enter through that door. And that door is called Bab Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the door of Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So we enter through that door. So that is where is the house of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Not that far obviously, more closer to the actual masjid. Inshallah, I'll show you. I forgot to, I was supposed to put that on, but I forgot. But inshallah, maybe next week I'll add that on as well. And then there's a few other family members of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who also lived within the vicinity of the masjid. At the top, if you look, Ja'far radiyallahu ta'ala, who was a cousin brother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the brother of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala, and next to him is the house of Sayyidina Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and next to him is obviously the house of one of the leaders of Ansar, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, rather Muhajir Sahaba. So these were the houses of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now these houses were very, very simple houses. Very simple houses. They weren't made from anything extravagant. Again, they were made from the palm tree trunks and their leaves, and along with that, some were made from baked unbaked bricks, and where the doors were, there was no actual doors or anything like that. Just a sheet and a blanket would be put over them so that it would give that privacy. And this would be the house was who lived with Sayyidina Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anha slave girl. So he was her daughter. He was her son, the slave girl of Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So he would say that when I grew a little bit older, then I could actually touch the roof of the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the dwellings of the Ummahatul Mu'mineen. Very simple homes, very simple homes. And they wouldn't have any form of lighting, to the extent that they wouldn't have even any candles within it. But one poet, he says that what is the need for a candle in that house in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is staying? He says, Ya badi' ad-dalli wal ghanaji laka sultani ala al-mahji inna baytan anta sakinuhu ghayru muhtajin ila suruji. That, oh, you who is the embodiment of beauty and unique features and who rules over the hearts of the people, the house which you reside in, what is the need of candles there? Because your face is radiant enough to illuminate the entire house. So this was the houses of Rasulullah, and it wasn't that they were very they didn't have the resources at that time. The resources were there, to the extent that there were certain individuals who had very, very nice, lavish houses and mansions compared to the houses of Rasulullah. They were like literally very small, just a small little room, enough for one bed, and that's where they sleep and everything. That's it, nothing else. But there were actually people who had, and they would actually compete with one another. The likes of, for example, Sayyidina Hassan ibn Thabit radiyallahu ta'ala had a big house, and he actually had it, they would name their houses. His house was called Fari. There was also Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, who was the leader, or you could say the soon to be inaugurated leader until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, of Medina Munawwara, and he also had a big mansion as well, and his mansion was called Muzahama, the one that competes with all the others. So he also had a nice lavish house. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he wanted, he could just indicate to any of his Sahaba, and they'd be ready to make a massive house for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't want a big house. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to live a very simple life. And this was the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So after the original masjid was built, then in the year 7th Hijri, I'll come to other things after inshallah, but in the year 7th Hijri, the masjid was extended a little bit more, because the Muslims had increased in number one, and number two, for the last 7 years, nothing has happened in terms of the structure of the masjid. And as it was said, that the original structure was of unbaked bricks and just palm trees and leaves, etc. So it needed renovating. So now, because Khaybar was conquered just before this, so Muslims had a lot more wealth as well now, and the condition of the Muslim had bettered. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed that, look, let us start afresh and let us make the masjid as well. So there was some land also next to the masjid which belonged to a Ansari Sahabi. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam approached him, and he was a poor Sahabi. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, look, would you like to give this land in return for a palace and land in Jannah? So that Sahabi said, Ya Rasulullah, I'd love to, but my circumstances don't allow it. I've got family, I've got kids, and I can't give that sacrifice, Ya Rasulullah. So Rasulullah said, no problem, that's fine. Then Sayyidina Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu heard this. So he went to that Sahabi and he says, would you sell me that land for 10,000 dirhams? So he says, yes, why not? So he bought that land for 10,000 dirhams. Then he comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says, Ya Rasulullah, would you give me a land and a house in Jannah if I was to give you that land? So he says, yes, the promise is for you as well if you acquire that land. So he says, Ya Rasulullah, I have just bought that land, I'm giving it to you, give me a palace and a land in Jannah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took that land and he says, for you is a palace in Jannah. That is why when he was assassinated and martyred, then one of the things he said many different things to tell the people, because they said, oh, you're like this and you're like this, you're a hypocrite, you do this wrong. So one of the things he said as well, that look, do you not remember the time when I purchased the land next to the original masjid, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised me that I'm going to be getting a land and a palace in Jannah, and you still say that I have gone against Islam and I have turned away and rebelled against Islam, and you want to kill me and you want to martyr? But they still didn't listen, and they came and they assassinated Sayyidina Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So nevertheless, he brought this, and this then extended the masjid by a significant amount, by nearly, you could say, another, say, 2/3, if not more than the actual capacity of it originally. So as you can see here, that it was originally, we had how many musallas? 1,400 musallas, and now it's gone to 3,362 musallas. Okay, so that is now accommodating a good number. Now I forgot to get the actual picture here. Hopefully, if I can remember, I'll put it on. But the actual hudud of this masjid, this size, you can actually see it in the original masjid now. So the original masjid, it's a bit light, unfortunately, but this whole box is the actual Masjid al-Nabawi. Okay, this whole box here is a bit light. So here is a green dome where the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So obviously that was outside the masjid. Okay, the blue box is the original masjid, the first masjid, and then the yellow box around it is the second extension which was made during the 7th year Hijri. So when this area here, if you enter from this side over here, from Bab Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, so when you enter there, you'll be entering straight into the Turkish area of the masjid. Okay, the Turkish area. So you've got, those that have been, you've got the nice marbled area and the umbrella area and all of that part. And then at the front you've got the other part, which is and you see the lighting there is slightly different, the tiling on the wall is slightly different. So that's like the Turkish Ottoman area of the masjid. So if you enter into there and you carry on, that's where the Riyadh al-Jannah and the Mumbar, and you go to pray Salat and Salam and things like that, all from that side. So if you go there and you're going into, if you go from Babu Bakr as-Siddiq, now they've cordoned everything off and things. So for example, you can only go through the first Babu Salam to go to the Rawda, and from the second gate after that, so number 2 is Babu Bakr as-Siddiq. If you go through there, then you come into the old section of the masjid and they've cordoned off that part. So if you carry on straight, and you come towards around 1, 2, 3, 4, probably around six pillars in or something. Then if you look at the top, okay, going across, if you look at the top, then there's pillars there, but at the top of those, that specific row of pillars, then you've got a little calligraphy and a bit of a flower there, and it says within that, هذا حد مسجد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And you've got a whole row coming from the front all the way to the back. If you're looking from the outside, you know where the people tend to sit near the umbrellas, and you can see the gumbad from there. So if you're looking from the umbrellas and you look at front, then you have 1, 2, you've got the middle massive aircon there, and then you've got like those where it says the names of Abu Bakr, Abu Hurairah and all of them. So if you look on that side where it says Abu Hurairah or something, that's where the columns are. So if you go there, and that row is the actual hudud of the original masjid of this one, in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba would perform salat in. And then obviously you've got the original one, which is slightly inside more as well. So you should try to perform your salat in that area as well. We tend to stay on this side, generally sitting near the umbrellas, sitting, at the gumbad, etc., where you can see the green dome, etc. But one should try to go towards that side and go inside as well. What I would do generally is I tend to spend my time from Maghrib to Isha in there, pray my wabi in there, stay till Isha, and then come out after that. So it's nice, and so you can actually, because some ulama, although this is not the majority view, but some ulama state that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that whosoever prays in my masjid will get the reward of 50,000 salat, or according to the more majority narration, that 1,000 salat, then a group of ulama say it refers to the actual original masjid. Although the majority of the ulama say no, it encompasses the whole masjid now as well. But some ulama say that no, it's the actual masjid. So just for for the sake of argument, one should try and go there and try to perform salat there as well. There is still obviously a lot more to discuss regarding the masjid. We've not even gone onto the current extensions and things. So inshallah we'll continue over the next session as well, and we'll continue and discuss inshallah. So I'll try to get the other picture in as well, so that we can kind of like have an idea of where we're going from and etc. inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to visit Al-Masjid al-Nabawi time and time again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to gain the barakat and the ruhaniyat, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect Al-Haramain al-Sharifain, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also protect Masjid al-Aqsa as well. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala khalikum Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam. Before I forget, Durood Sharif. Inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سلام على عباده الذين صفى. سلام على موسى. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد وانزل مقدم وقرب عند اللهم رب هذه الدعوه القائمه والصلاه النافيه لسنة على محمد وارض عني رضي الله رزقته بعده وبدا. اللهم صل على محمد عبده ورسوله وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد وارحم محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت باركت ورحمت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وأزواجه وذريته كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته كما باركت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أزواجه وذريته كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى أزواجه وذريته كما باركت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد النبي وأزواج أمهات المؤمنين وذريته وآل بيته كما صليت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وترحم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما ترحمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم ترحم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما ترحمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم تحنن على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما تحننت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما سلمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم على محمد وعلى آل محمد وارحم محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت وباركت وترحمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد عبده ورسولك كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وبارك على محمد النبي الأمي كما باركت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد عبده ورسولك النبي الأمي وعلى آل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد صلاة تكون لك رضا ولو جزاء لحقها دعواته الوسيلة والفضيلة والمقام المحمود الذي وعدت وجزي أن ما هو أهل وجزي أفضل ما جازت النبي عن قومه والرسول عن أمته. وصلي على جميع إخوانه من النبيين والصالحين يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته كما صليت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل على الإمام. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى أهل بيته كما باركت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على معهم صلوات الله وصلوات المؤمنين على محمد النبي الأمي. اللهم اجعل صلواتك ورحمتك وبركاتك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما جعلت على آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وصلى الله على النبي الأمي. التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. التحيات الطيبة والصلوات لله. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. التحيات لله الطيبة والصلوات لله. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. التحيات والبركات والصلوات الطيبات لله. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بسم الله بالله التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وأسأل الله الجنة وأعوذ بالله من النار تحيات الله الزاكيات الله الطيبات صلوات الله السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بسم الله بالله خير اسماء التحيات الطيبات صلوات الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ورسوله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وأن الساعة آتية لا ريب فيها السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين اللهم اغفر لي واهدنا التحيات الطيبات الصلوات والملك لله السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله التحيات لله صلوات الله الزاكيات لله السلام على النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين شهدت أن لا إله إلا الله شهدت أن محمد رسول الله بالتحيات الطيبات الصلوات الله الصلوات الزاكيات لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمد عبده ورسوله صلى بالحق بشيرا السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين التحيات الطيبات الصلوات الزاكيات لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد عبد الله ورسوله السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين التحيات الصلوات لله السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين التحيات لله الصلوات الطيبات السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله التحيات المباركات الصلوات الطيبات لله السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله بسم الله والسلام على رسول الله يا رب صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. Most of these diagrams were taken from a book by Maulana Ibrahim Noor of Coventry. He's written a Seerah book, short and very easy, concise, and he's done a nice little breakdown of this. So most of these diagrams were taken from there, and other obviously current photos were taken just online and found on the web, on the internet. And just another thing, obviously the situation in Gaza at this moment is still ongoing, and it's not it's not decreased, and the same fikr, the same concern which you should have had on day one should still remain now as well. So we still need to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah tomorrow we've got a Quran Khatam at 9 o'clock inshallah in Al-Hidayah on James Street. Inshallah it will be a short talk by Maulana Hudhaifa Bayat of Broadgate, and thereafter inshallah Khatam will take place there as well. So brothers are requested that try to attend that as well. Jazakumullah. No.